Hello everybody and welcome. Let's talk VRG. Now I've got a ton of things prepared to be able to walk us through what we're going to talk about today, but we'll start off here. The how-to, I'm going to go on my laptop and show you exactly how to do it. The strategies for reporting all of your stuff, the rules, the tools, and the outcomes. In my video, I will try and take these in chunks, and by the end, we'll see how they all work together. As volunteers, we're regularly involved in activities, whether it be we're facilitating one, which could be an English class or a life skills session. We're co-facilitating one, which could be project management and design, or we are invited to one, which is a community engagement, or we could be hosting that or also facilitating that as well. The activities we are involved with are the areas that we can report in VRG. And they could be 1 day, 3 days, an ongoing activity like our English one. And this is helpful for us to keep in mind as we think about reporting the numbers of people who show up, because it's easier to report one activity and put it in our VRG as a one-time thing with a list of 20 people who showed up and whether or not they have achieved the goal, versus an ongoing activity where we constantly have new people coming in and we have to see whether or not those individuals meet the goal and how many times they attended, which is important for us to keep in mind for later. Starting with the how-to, let's go straight over to the laptop and see how we can actually do this. So this is the opening screen for VRG. This is what it will look like when you access your own VRG. In order to make an activity, first go to the Activities tab, click Add, and it will take you to this screen. This screen is the new activity screen, and it's the intro to entering a brand new activity. Now, let's go to fill out. So we're in the Youth Development, Post Activity. When we click this, we're gonna get a menu. And this menu here shows us all the different subjects in the Project Logic framework to file our VRG in. Now, let's pause here and go straight to the meat of this entire video and VRG in general. This is the Project Logical framework. And each one of these has a subject for what we are supposed to do as volunteers, what we can do, teach life skills, increase youth community engagement, and all of those are objectives. And the main goal of everything is to help Moroccans become more empowered people of their own country. And these objectives are how we do that. Now, you have been doing activities the entire time you've been here. But the big question is what is the goal of your activity? This makes everything so simple if we think about our projects and activities of what is the goal. Hi. So for me, the past few weeks, I have been teaching English. Here are my English classes. I have beginner's English, English at the Nettiness Suite, college English, and business English. Still at the Dar Shabab. These two are at the Dar Shabab, but that is my advanced English. This is my beginner's English. And I do this twice a week, that once a week. So that's what I've been doing. And the goal of those activities has been to increase the ability of youth to communicate English under objective number 2 in the Project Logical framework. So when I'm filing my activities, I'm gonna go and look for this one. Facilitating classes focused on practicing communicative English, and click it. And then following that, I will enter in my project start date, which for me was, I started doing this in December and I will finish in November. And I'll change this to my site now, Bingarir. And then location, site location, I'll specifically tag my Dar Shabab. Great. Now, once you finish this section here, at the very top, we're going to scroll back up and we're going to click this button, Save. Once you save, it will then take you to a screen that looks like this. And you'll see all of these open tabs. Now, if you don't, go to a screen that looks like that, it might have just taken you back to the activities page where you'll see your activity. You just click this button on the left, which will help you to open it up. Now, for all of these, you just want to open them up and go through them all one by one. Answer the questions in each of these sections. If you don't have an answer for it, just leave it blank. And in the future, Nabil will help sort anything out that he thinks should be added. But to streamline this, you can go straight to the activities tab, because all of these program tags, Peace Corps goals, collaborative volunteers, and collaborative partners, we're not doing that right now. You don't need to, like there's nothing in there that you would be adding. So you can open this up and go to question number 1, which is locally defined priorities. And here is how you would state, who helped identify the activity you're doing as a priority and why, and state that here. So for example, the activity was identified by the Mudir at my Dar Shabab with the students expressing that they wanted to learn English, and so I started this class. Boom. Moving on, we have sustainability. How will the outcome be sustained? You can be honest with this. Put it as your personal note and say, sustainability right now is not currently active, or do not have sustainability, but the plan is that in the future, inshallah, I will have a student who will become the teacher, or I will help to procure a teacher. But that's what you can put here. If you did not use Pocket for this, do not touch this tab. But if you did, then click the tab, but there will be more questions to answer. And it's kind of like, what Pocket tool did you use? Did you use a community map for your activity? If so, what were the outcomes of that? And you just simply write out what happened. Implementing results. Were activity outcomes reached, achieved, as anticipated? Please describe. Describe what happened. I taught classes from December until now. The outcome is being achieved, but we're still working on it. And the outcome for me is the goal, which is to teach the students communicative English or increase their capacity. And we're getting there. That's what's happening. Lessons learned and promising practices. The last question. It will just say, we can be honest with what happened. So, lesson learned. I did not come prepared on day 1 with a sheet to take attendance. I have learned that taking attendance is vital. So I brought a sheet. Boom. And that will be finished. That's how you can put it. But this is a great way to reflect on what you could have done, what happened, how you could do it better, and what changes you will make in the future to make it better. And then we get to the final part, outcomes, outputs, and outcomes. So from there, you're going to take the information on your sheets, your sign-in sheets, which should have the name, the sex, and the age of the participants. And you're gonna plug them in right here. We're gonna look at the top. It says number of youth taught communicative English. So you're gonna aggregate your data. So 4 females came to class, 1 male came to class. That is between these ages. 3 males came to class between these ages, and so on and so forth. And you will just click over on the right-hand side, add their number, and then it will total up for the bottom here. Now, outcomes. This is the second tab on here. In this activity, which currently, if we go back to the activity date, stated in the activity from the very beginning, this is an ongoing activity, meaning it's not supposed to close until November, at the end of my service. I am able to update these numbers until this activity is closed out. And once you finish putting in all of your numbers, you're gonna go to the very top and you're gonna click Save. And that way, all of the work that you just did does not go down the drain, because Wi-Fi sucks sometimes. So please click this button ad nauseum. Click it when you finish every task. That way you do not have to worry about restarting from scratch all the time. Don't click save and close, just click save. But when you finish everything and you put in all of your numbers, you're going to click validate. Save, then validate. What does validate do? Validate gives your information a green thumbs up and then sends it to Nabil and tells him that he can review the information. Now the next step for us is to go to the following tab, which is called reporting, up here in the top of our window. And it looks like this. So this is the reporting page, and what we do here is we open up the outputs tab and click on the select indicators. Now I just finished inputting an activity, and you see here it's green, but when you look at it for the first time, it's going to present as yellow, which means there is something that you need to do. For this, you are simply tallying up all the individuals during that time period who attended. That's why here would be the sums column, the summary of people reached for your activity. If you had multiple activities during this past couple months, you'd have 2 or 3. And this is also why it's important to kind of choose whether to have many activities or to have one activity that could count for the same objective. This way, because if you have them all, here, 1, 2, and 3, you'd have to find out where, like a student of yours, say Fatima Zara, who attended all 3 of my classes, I'd have to remember that she was there and then only record her once as a summary of someone being reached for this indicator. But if I only have one activity, well then I just have one individual to count. And so here on the left-hand column, or right-hand column, you'll see your number as indicated, and the goal for you is to input all of the numbers exactly as they are for the people reached. The sum will total itself out, and then you click this validation button. We're going to do the same process for the outcomes column. We're going to hit the outcomes. This will be yellow for you. You click it, and then we will again transfer the numbers. And be mindful that this one says reached and achieved. So this, we go back to the topic of whether or not the participants have achieved the indicator or the goal of our activity, which is to have increased their capacity, or that they are enhanced. This one, they demonstrate enhanced communicative English abilities. So we reached, reached in the reach column, but achieved for my student, yes, she took a exam and she achieved the output, so I can mark her off as 1. But here it might be different in this column. Once this is finished, for all of your numbers, you click validate again, and that's it. Congratulations, you just completed your first VRG submission. You can go to the home page and review everything, activities page, and review everything as you would like. But then you just wait to see if Nabil or anyone reaches out. Now, if they do, you can find them in the top right-hand corner here. You'll find a red dot, and this will be kind of like your inbox where they can send you questions and ask you to fix things in your VRG so that it will be properly reported. So now that I've explained the how-to, let's talk strategy. So what we can do is for every activity we have, we make sure to grab an attendance sheet and have a way of monitoring the outcomes of the activity, and then open up a new activity in the activities tab, fill out everything we just did again, put the numbers at the bottom and submit, then come to the following page and validate our numbers here. And this works really well for activities where they're just one-offs, why splash activities are helpful, and even for our recreational activities, they are helpful, and of course our English classes too. But this is challenge for classes like English when you have an ongoing activity for this indicator. Which leads me to strategy number 2. And that is create an activity in our VRG under one indicator, which is the teaching communicative English classes, and we can bulk all of our individuals in one sheet, which is here. Now, I did this on an Excel spreadsheet, and then I did this on an Excel spreadsheet, and I can keep my tallies of everyone. But in this second method, that means that we have to add up all of the names, cross-check to make sure that there's no individuals who have shown up more than once, so that we have a master sheet of everyone so that each person can be counted once. Because when we go here, we come back to, for any activity, it's always going to be the individual reached for that activity, which each individual should show up once. If Fatima Zara came to 5 of my classes, she still has been reached once. And that also counts again down here when we talk about the individual achieving the activity. Now, let's move from these two schools of strategy to rules. For English, communicative English, we know that one rule is that for a person to be counted as reached, they need to have shown up to an English class at least once. And VRG, as long as they've shown up, we can count them under reached. But for achieving the objective, we know that a individual needs to have shown up at least 3 times, 3 separate times, in order to be eligible for us to give them a test, which then allows us to see if they have achieved the goal, which is to demonstrate enhanced communicative English ability. And we do that with use of tools, which we'll get to later. Additionally, rule for a recreational activity, this is a one-off activity. It doesn't have any attachment to, say, a life skill. So we are able to report anything being achieved in a recreational activity because it's only an activity that is there for fun or has a different purpose, not specifically like a life skill, where at the end of the recreational activity, they should have learned something or shown that they've demonstrated a capacity built. That's why it's different for splash activities. This is a one-off activity that might have connection to a life skill, but those under the project logical framework only co-plan, co-facilitate youth recreational activities that incorporate life skills development are the ones that don't have an outcome. But for splash activities, it counts under youth community and engagement skills, which does have an outcome. A strategy we can put into play to report is that, let's say you have a recreational activity of teaching soccer or practicing soccer or running a specific activity over and over again. There is a good chance that one of those days you could host a life skill session about sharing or stress management or leadership that is then followed by a recreational activity. And this recreational activity could be potentially a tool that you can use to monitor whether someone has achieved the outcome of learning the life skill, which would make it reportable under. So what do these strategies do and what do these rules tell us? That if we're going to use the strategy of bulking, like I mentioned over here, that it does help us in the long run to not have to worry about deduplication, because we are doing the math on paper, tallying up how many people from which age group, so that we know how many people to put in the boxes for an ongoing activity like English. And that's helpful because then we don't have to try and remember on the VRG program who goes what where and which person shouldn't be included in a tally. But it is easier for us if there is a one-time activity to just file it under one activity, put this in, and we're finished. So that's why those two strategies are helpful. But how do we know those individuals actually learned or have acquired the skills that we're trying to teach them through the use of a tool. So for English, we have the English assessment tool. This is one that you could use. We also have the skills, life skills assessment tool, which is one. Or we have a few others. The pre and post test assessment, which is when you lead a class and before you start, you might say, who knows this word or that word or this object or this idea? And people tell you whether they do or don't. And then afterwards, you have a test of, do you remember what we talked about during the session? And they may say yes, in which case, pre and post test achieved. You know that someone had learned or acquired what you have taught them by giving them a pre and post test. Next is a survey. You could ask them, hey, do you feel like you have increased in your ability to learn English and use English? Do you feel confident in speaking English now? If they say yes, achieved. Or an informal verbal interview. You could talk with them or maybe put them in a small group setting and ask them whether or not they understand how to use this life skill in their life and whether it's applied. And then do this a few days later. And this could be another way. And lastly, an observational analysis. You observing the participant to see whether or not they are demonstrating the skill or the knowledge that you have taught them in these activities. These are tools that you can use and they're super helpful. Now, you only need to have one of these tools reached or a good check thumbs up or achieved to say in VRG that they can be counted as an outcome. They have achieved the goal of the activity. Now, why is this important? Because in English, the rule is that we need someone to show up 3 times in order to be able to assess them using one of these tools to say that they have achieved the outcome of what we're trying to monitor in VRG. Or the subject that they are studying has been acquired. But if we just take this information and we don't look at it and then we plug in the numbers as everyone has achieved the goal, we're not really holding to a standard of reporting well. Now, you can make your own tools. Some people can give a different language assessment test, like a vocab test, and you can extend the tools out. If this is ongoing, if your English classes are ongoing, or your splash activity is happening 3 times a year instead of 1 time out of the year, then you have another chance to assess the same student and whether or not they have grown and increased in their ability. And once you recognize they have, you check them off, and then you change the number in your VRG or report it in your VRG. Okay, we're almost done. So the last topic is outcomes. For an individual to be counted as an outcome in VRG, they need to achieve the indicator that is mentioned in VRG under the topic of what you are facilitating or what session you're leading. But they can only achieve this once. That is a rule. So for us, when we're teaching English, a person can only achieve the outcome or become an outcome when they have increased their capacity. But later down the road, if they reach a new level, they are still only counted once as an outcome. But it is possible for one person to achieve multiple different indicators. And we measure this by the use of the tools. So we could ask ourselves, I have one person who's showing up to all of my English classes. And some of my English classes are like public speaking classes. And public speaking is a life skill. So they're achieving 2 and 1, but I'm only allowed to make 1 activity in VRG at a time. What I could do is I could host an activity in the same time slot as my English class, for English class, that talks about the subject of life skills. But then for that activity, I'm able to use a tool to assess that individual and whether or not they gain the life skill of public speaking, which could be a beginning assessment and then a later assessment in order to count that person as an outcome in more than one indicator in VRG. This could happen for students who you see they're improving not only in their life skills, but in their communicative English, and you want to be able to record them in VRG. It's possible. And this is how individuals can be outcomes as long as we follow the structure of monitoring and evaluating, using the tools and following the rules. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending the time on this. Until then, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Take care.